Oh, developers, I'm absolutely parched. How's it going? Shout out to Chiquito. 48 ounces of pure joy, watermelon wonder kombucha. Chiquito, are you out there? Can you hear me? Can everyone see me? How's it going, TGIF, on this wonderful afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on where you are? I hope you guys can hear me. I'm never confident in this. Today, we are talking about a learning path for software developers in 2020. Employable software developers. There is a slight difference. There are a lot of materials out there that will give you the skill as is. You can do whatever you want with it. But for most of us, we're trying to get to that goal of becoming employable and employed so we can make money and enjoy our lives. So as always, I hope the chat is ready to participate because these live streams are not very fun with me just monologuing the entire time. Let's go to the chat. Let's see. One moment, please. This is always awkward. Check the comments here. Hey, Shanawaz, Paradoodly, you guys can hear me? Awesome. Alrighty. We are live and on. Rebecca, what's up? All right, developers. So I am not going to waste any time here. I want to thank everyone for their great support of realtoughcandy.io, a platform for leveling up, landing a job, and getting a raise. We have a lot of people who signed up. It's really exciting to see. We just dropped our course menu for the 2020-2021 season. These are courses that are going to be dropping on specific dates, not specific months, so you can know what to expect if you're a yearly member or if you're just holding out until a course that really interests you comes your way. So our upcoming courses include problem solving with JavaScript. What else do we have? Intermediate UX UI for web developers. Our third course, because we're dropping them every 4 months. Our third course in that yearly cycle, what did I say? Problem solving with JavaScript, UX UI for web developers, intermediate, and oh, come on, I just had it at the tip of my brain here. Oh, come on, Paradoodly. I gave you that list. What's the third one? Oh, monetizing your applications, because a lot of people are building some really cool apps, but they don't know how to make money from them. So we're going to talk about funding, streams of income, and all that. Some of which you may or may not have heard of. So really looking forward to those. All right. A learning path for employable web developers in 2020. You know, you guys ever go to Chipotle or these other like cafeteria style fast food joints? The first thing they ask you, pick your protein. What's going to be the thing that's going to be the bulk of your learning path? What do I mean by that? Well, when you're picking your protein in software development, it's kind of like your discipline. What's going to be the bulk of what you learn about? Are you going to do web development? Are you going to do mobile development? Are you going to do intranet stuff, something really specific? What kind of development are you going to do? Because that's going to inform what languages you need to learn, what technologies you need to learn, what projects you need to be focusing on, who you need to be talking to. That's going to flavor your entire path. So that is big step 0. Step 0, pick your protein. What do you want to do? Now, this channel is mostly web development. We do talk about other forms of development. We don't exclude any type, but the big focus is web development because that's where the just phenomenal growth is. And that is where every desktop application seems to be going. If you don't believe me, check out Adobe's line of products. All of those are in the creative cloud right now, Adobe CC. Photoshop, Illustrator, all those. So many formerly desktop apps now becoming web applications, making that transition. You'd think in 2020 we would have been further along in this process, but there are just so many apps that it's going to take a while, and this is not an overnight process. So that's why we focus on the web the most, because that's what people are interested in. That's where the applications are going. Some may argue that's the case for mobile apps. We can argue about that another day. How about, because there is some fun stuff to talk about with mobile applications. All right, so pick your protein, then what? Well, if you're becoming a web developer, if you've decided that's your protein, then you've got to pick of the millions, literally millions of resources out there. Which do you pick? What do you pick? Most of us probably already know the basics of what to study. Not that we know the basics, we know what they are. You know what I mean? So you probably know you need to study HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you don't, there's your first step in this bucket. If you're becoming a web developer, your order of operations is as follows: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. The core components, the holy trinity of web development relies on those three things. HTML, markup language; CSS, a style sheet, giving your HTML some flavor; and then JavaScript is going to give you that interactive component. Just very important. Have you ever, I've tried this once, and it was like a 5 kombucha type of day, because I turned off my JavaScript just to see, just as like a personal experiment. Just thinking about it is making me kind of ill. I turned off my JavaScript in my browser for like 10 minutes. I couldn't do anything, like seriously. Whether it was entertainment, banking, any type of business app, you have to have JavaScript. Now, a very small percentage, like little teeny tiny percentage of people don't have JavaScript enabled in their browsers for security reasons, or I don't know. There are actually a couple of reasons. Sorry, I just had an almost burp. Very unflattering. There are actually a few different reasons people don't use JavaScript in their browsers. But whatever the reason is, it's very difficult to navigate the web without JavaScript in 2020, especially if you're trying to do something. Now, if you're just trying to read articles, okay. But if you're trying to do something, you're not going to have an easy time of that, because that's what JavaScript does. It lets you do stuff. So there's your 3. All right. So we've established what you need to learn for the basics. Because then after that, we have that fun, murky territory of frameworks and JavaScript libraries and stuff. I'll talk about that in a second. So you got your basics, your holy trinity, your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript. Where do you go to learn this? There are literally a million places. We have blogs. We have zines, web zines. I consider Medium a zine. I haven't used it for quite some time, but like, we have places like dev.to. We have YouTube. We have free videos on YouTube. We have free videos in other places. We have niche platforms. What do I mean by that? Independent developers who are also instructors, who are doing their own thing, teaching people that way. We have these massive video platforms like Udemy, Coursera, Udacity. Did I say Udemy? That should be the top big kahuna. Most of us are familiar with Udemy. A great entry point for people who are exploring this career field, because the stuff is so cheap. It's cheap and bountiful. Some of it is very high quality too. What else? We have, if you're not into videos, we also have online interactive editors, places like Educative. I love that platform. It's such a great platform. They have so many courses. Whatever your flavor, whatever your protein, they have it. They even have one on HTML and CSS for beginners. They have some beginner stuff, intermediate and advanced stuff. They have stuff for FANG level people with FANG aspirations. There are other sites. We have Scrimba. That's a really cool site too. I didn't review it for like 3 years. Sometimes people ask me to review these things and I'm just like, I just don't, because I see so many that I have a hard time seeing the value of some of these places for a lot of people. Now, certainly every platform has its place, but some of these that I've come across are just, others do it better, and it doesn't make sense for me to, do a review about why I don't like this. So I'm always like shy to do reviews with these ones that I'm not really familiar with, or I haven't heard good things about necessarily. Not that I was hearing bad things about Scrimba. It just wasn't on my radar. I checked it out and I was like, this is really cool. You can pause the video. So here's how it works. Scrimba, most of their courses are free. They have like mini boot camps and stuff, and these more advanced courses or advanced tracks, I guess. This was last year, so it may have changed. But when you're taking a course, you watch the video and the instructor is explaining these things, and it's just, a voiceover. Everyone is familiar with that format, right? Especially if you're on Udemy. But here's where it gets interesting. Pause the video and you can go in to their code editor and manipulate their code. It blew my mind. I was like, what? How has no one told me about? How has no one blown up my inbox like, hey, RTZ, you need to check this out ASAP. That's a really cool platform. And we have so many great platforms. We web developers are truly spoiled. Our biggest problem is TMI. Our biggest problem is too much quality. We also have a lot. I mean, not only do we have a flood of resources, we also have a lot of really good ones. I also started realtoughcandy.io, which is intended to be a bridge between raw skills and employable status. So my job on realtoughcandy.io is to bring you with your skills to the next level so that you can be employable. For example, we have a course, a portfolio surgery, shows you 5 major methods for revamping your portfolio. So your projects are unique and employers care about it. And they say, I've actually never seen this project before, even though it may be a spin on a project you've built in a course. Paradoodly-doo, if you have that link, can you share it with the audience? Portfolio surgery. We have stuff like that ready and willing to meet you where you are. And so it's really hard to choose, especially with the trinity of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Lots of places. We also have books. We have podcasts. We have every sort of freaking media. So where do you start as someone? Let's just assume you're serious about becoming a web developer. Oops, I'm kicking things. In 2020, going into 2021, you're serious about it. Where do you start? I would say for a gentle, no pressure experience, kiddie pool, just easing your way into the 12-foot drop, check out Udemy. There are some great courses there. And again, they may try to revamp their image, but to me, Udemy will always be the home of the $9.99 course. I don't think they can change that. That is what they are famous for or infamous for, however your perspective. They're not going to be changing that anytime soon. Yeah, okay, maybe it's $11.99 now, but you know what I mean. These are basement blowout Bob's prices. There are a couple of courses that are really great and a couple of instructors where it's just like, okay, you're in pretty good hands here for what you're paying. The saying's true, you get what you pay for. So if you're expecting a 5-star, a cradle to grave experience with the Udemy course, you're not going to get it. However, you're getting a pretty good start with some of this stuff. One thing that comes to mind right away is some of these boot camps. Angela Yu has a great boot camp. You've seen her advertisement if you're not using an ad blocker on YouTube. Hi. she has the white background and she has a great smile and just like, wow, what are you teaching? I'm interested. Like, that woman has sold millions of dollars of product on Udemy. I'm sure of it, but she has a great boot camp. Angela Yu, YU. She also has an in-person boot camp in the UK. If you're a if you're a UK viewer, I'm not sure whereabouts actually. London, maybe? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Who else? Colt Steele. Now, Colt Steele has made some interesting career moves over the past 2 years. He's currently an instructor at an online boot camp called Springboard. It costs like $10,000, which I think they recently reduced the price. I haven't checked it out. I interviewed someone who was actually taking it. Dom interviewed him. That was a really interesting interview. Dom, if you're watching this, thanks for coming on the channel. He's been to multiple boot camps, and he's constantly learning. He's such an interesting person and just a really interesting interview. Paradoodly, shout out to our mod Paradoodly-doo today, who's doing everything I say, presumably. I haven't checked, but she's holding it down, so thank you. Share that interview I did with Dom the other month, because he can share more about these online boot camps. And disclaimer, his employer paid for it, because it's like, again, it's like $7,000 or $10,000, the Springboard thing. But going back to Udemy, Colt Steele has that boot camp. It is getting, according to him and his team, it's getting a major facelift right now because when he first released it, things were a little different. Now, this course is not like 20 years old. I don't even know if it's like 5 years. It may be 5 or 6 years old. I don't know. But as a former Udemy instructor, no courses of mine are on Udemy. I released a course or two there. I released 2 courses there. If you just go in and change a lowercase I to a capital I, that will reflect as being updated to current. So you gotta really do your research with these courses developers, because if you're learning raw tech skills, and it's not up to date, it's going to be really freaking frustrating, because the last thing you want is the dejecting process of trying to find out how to set up your local environment for 5 hours. I've taken some of these courses when I was a code newbie, and I've quit them because I couldn't get the stuff set up. And I didn't have the community at the time because I was so new. I hadn't found a community to help me. And even if I had found one, I don't think I'd be confident enough to actually ask strangers for help. So if you're in that position, you have to check and preview the videos as much as possible. Do your research before enrolling in these things, because these courses are like 30 and 40 hours of just video. On realtoughcandy.io, for every 15 minutes of video, and this is a disclaimer on each of our courses, for every 15 minutes of video, you're working between 1 and 6 hours, depending on the course. Because we've had people test these, and we've seen, where the work is going to be happening and where the process, the neurons are going to be firing, and the pauses are going to be happening when beta testing these courses. And it's the same situation on these courses that are 30 and 40 hours. So do your research, because again, there's nothing quite as frustrating as enrolling in these Kahuna courses and then seeing, oh, none of this stuff is up to date. Why can't I get my IDE working? This really sucks. And then worst case scenario, you walking away from web development because it's nothing but frustrating and you're not getting any positive feedback. But anyway, so that course is however many years old. It's not that old, but it has stuff like jQuery, which I'm going to be doing a video on jQuery because it's still very useful. If you Google jQuery is dead, I'm one of the first results. Is jQuery dead? I'm one of the first results there. We did a poll about a year and a half or 2 years ago of people asking them, is jQuery dead? We had some really great responses. In my opinion, it's not dead. Far from it. Oh my gosh, far from it. And in my opinion, from what I've experienced and the people I know, the networks I maintain, jQuery is still very much a thing once you get into the operational software development industry. Why is that? Because people were going bananas over jQuery not too long ago, and it allowed you to rapidly create viable applications. So even though, building projects from scratch with jQuery may not be the best idea or the most optimal, the most efficient even in 2020, knowing it on the job is really helpful. So anyways, what I'm saying is they had jQuery in the course. He also didn't address ES6, and there's no framework, which more modern boot camps, the online $9.99 deals, like Andre Negoy, he has an online boot camp. He also has his own platform. But these modern boot camps are all starting to, integrate framework or a library like React. I need a kombucha. We're going to check the comments in a second. I've been babbling. So let me take a swig here. So good. So where are we at this point? Okay, you've decided you've picked your protein, web development or whatever, mobile, desktop. Although, again, everything's going to the web. Just saying. You've picked your protein. You've explored your options. Okay, do I like videos? Do I like books? Do I do better with interactive stuff? Now what? Now comes the real fun part. Now comes making projects. Your portfolio. Now, I'm just going to assume you're a web developer. If you're not, please excuse me. Insert your own scenario here. But as a web developer, your most important asset, bar none, is your portfolio. If your portfolio is not smoking hot, is not popping, is not just blinding you with the contents inside, you need to take a step back and assess how you can improve it. Because if your portfolio does not impress an employer, you will not get the job. Cover letters, resumes, and GitHub links, GitHub pages are also important. We talk about this in How to Get a Job in Web Development. Wall-to-wall 5-star reviews, I might add. Paradoodly-doo, please pop that link for that course. It shows you everything you need to do to impress employers and land that job. And it has indeed helped so many people. I'm very pleased with the turnout on that and the results. Your GitHub, your resume, and your cover letter are important, but by far the shining crown jewel that you need to pay the most attention to is your portfolio. Fortunately, if you take a bootcamp style course, or even like some of these bigger JavaScript courses, or JavaScript framework courses, they do a ton of projects. And as you get better, this is what's so interesting about the self-taught process. Oh yeah, also, I didn't even mention this. You can also go to college or go to an in-person boot camp. But the vast majority of my viewers are self-taught. We're all self-taught, right? But like I'm talking about like nearly 100% self-taught, i.e. didn't go to college for computer science, i.e. did not go to a $10,000 to $30,000 boot camp. So if you're self-taught, you're taking these courses and there's going to be some projects. And this is what's so fascinating about the whole learning process, is that once you build that to-do app, like to-do apps are really interesting, because even though they've been done to death, it's not really a unique problem, because I mean, by now there probably have been 1 billion plus to-do apps created over the course of the last 10 years with all these people taking these courses. Once you create that first project, you're like, wow, this is really cool. Having that bit of interactivity, and this is what's so awesome about web development, is that within a few short intervals, within even a few short minutes, if you know what you're doing, you can have something pop up on your screen and interact with you, something that you created. And I think there are just so many, excuse me, there are so many creative types in this career field, and I can see why. We talked about this the other month on a live stream. We have a ton of musicians in the chat, including myself. This is never a career I thought I'd find myself in. I always thought computing, programming was super dry, super boring, super just, I mean, my ideas of it were based on stereotypes. I didn't know any programmers myself. It was just from the stereotypes I saw in movies and TV. Thankfully, there are some really rad portrayals of programmers and hackers in Hollywood. Of course, has nothing to do with reality. I just picked up this movie called Swordfish the other week. It's so funny. It's just like, wow, if this is their perception of people in the programming world or people who work with computers, keep making them, because it makes us look awesome, even though it's completely fabricated. But going back to that thing about the self-taught learning process, is that you build these to-do apps and then you're learning so much. By next week, you turn around and you say, whoa, this to-do app is super basic. So then you build a CRUD app that allows you to create a database, allows people to log in. You work with authentication. You're working with APIs and these different services. And these things, this desert all of a sudden turns into this cornucopia, this rainforest of just a true ecosystem. You hear that word a lot in software development, ecosystem. And sometimes I am sick of hearing it because I think it is abused, but it is a true, and I think apt word to use. It is an ecosystem. And the more you cultivate it, the more enriching it becomes. And so you build upon these projects, and it's like a hockey stick curve. It's like, okay, I'm going right along. It's like, whoa, to-do app, CRUD app. Oh my gosh, look at all these applications I'm building that bug trackers. Like, I don't even need to look at the documentation right now. Woo! And it gets to that point where it is so satisfying to see something created. How does this relate to your portfolio? Well, every time you build something better than that to-do app, you need to be sticking it in your portfolio. Why is this? Because employers want to see something that's solving a problem. At the end of the day, we are problem solvers. And to-do apps are great, but they're bad candidates. To-do apps and their ilk are bad candidates for portfolios because employers have seen them many times. Think of it. So you have to kind of reflect and go Zen mode when you're at the job search phase and job application phase, and ask yourself, do some self-reflecting. This is tough, even for 5 minutes. Sit back, log off, and think from a employer's standpoint. Why is this company hiring web developers? Why do companies hire people? It's an interesting question, right? Why do companies hire people? Why do companies hire software developers? Is it because software developers know how to create to-do apps? No. Is it because software developers have learned Ajax? No. Is it because software developers have learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? No. Employers aren't concerned with the technologies necessarily. Hold on. Employers are concerned with getting their problem solved. Employers are concerned with getting their problem solved. And if you can bring a set of tools, knowledge, and your limited experience as a newbie, that defines newbies, right? Limited experience. If you can bring your problem-solving abilities with the tools you have, JavaScript, framework, HTML, CSS, etc., to solve these problems that the business has, you're going to get the job. So what am I saying? And here it is. This is the climax of the video. This is it. If you can put projects in your portfolio that show or convince your employer that you can solve their problems, you have the job. Point blank, period. You have the job. If someone cold called me, let's just say I answered my phone for once, and we had this conversation. I brought this person in for an interview. They showed me their projects, and they reflected a problem-solving process that I need in my business. That person has the job. Assuming they can, assuming other things, just assuming are normal. Like you can communicate, okay. That's important too, no doubt. But communication is also part of that problem-solving package. We talk about that too on realtoughcandy.io. It's a course called Professional Communication for Junior Developers. Really critical course, devs. Got to know how to communicate. That's part of the package. That's part of the package. And even though, and I don't just mean verbal communication, although that's really important too. The big core Ruby that employers are looking for is whether or not you can solve their problems. Can you convince them that you can solve their problems? How do you convince them? With your projects. Point blank. Number one, absolutely. You could have 10 out of 10 communication skills, but if your portfolio stinks, it's on to the next one. And that is really where you need to be focusing on for this path. You can build projects all day, 7 days a week. You can take 500 courses. Courses don't make you a developer. Courses don't make you eligible to become a junior developer. Once you start solving problems with code, that's when you are getting paid as a developer. And in my opinion, that's one of the hallmarks, and that's one of the that's the point where you can say, you know what, I am an employable software developer. I'm solving problems. All right, let's go to the comments. Had to ruffle some feathers in this live stream, developers. Listen, I don't know if you looked out of the window, one of them. Hopefully you have at least one lately. It's kind of bleak. This is the one career field not one. There are many others. All right. I'm not going to be too, I don't know what the word is, but I'm not trying to deceive you in any way, because there are other career fields that pay really well where you can still, uh, apply yourself and be valuable. But this is one of a dying breed. There aren't a lot of jobs out there. What other professional career field do you know of where you don't have to have a 4-year degree to get paid 80,000, 100,000, 150,000 by your second year? Trades in certain states, now some states not so much, but in certain states here in the United States, some of these trades are paying pretty good too, but you're not making 150K your second year. You're probably not making 6 digits your second year. You'll be taken care of in a trade. You'll throw your back out a few times, break a few legs, but you'll be taken care of. Especially if, well, we won't get into it because this isn't a channel about the trades. However, that's one where you don't need a college degree. But as far as the rapid, again, hockey stick growth, going back to that hockey stick thing, for my data visualization people, if you stick in this career field 2 or 3 years, you're going to be just fine. By your 7th year, you're going to be boss. You're going to be boss moves. That's when researchers suggest is the point of mastering something. It takes 7 years to master something. I'm just delivering the message. I don't know if it's true or not. I still have to put in a few more years. I'll let you know. Actually need to write that in my journal, do like a 7-year reflection. Am I truly making boss moves? Check 1 for yes, check 2 for no. Let's go to the comments here because there's a lot to talk about. Whoa, Donovan. Okay, I didn't do my roll call because I was so excited about today's live stream. Pinnacle Point, checking in from Atlanta, Georgia. Average Joe says, but we love the monologuing. All right. I mean, it's what the people want. If developers want the monologuing, by all means, I'm here for you guys. So Andriel Hills, what's up? Donovan, Code with Nishant, Shenawaz, Paris Diaz, Code with Nishant, Amine Amin, Troy Mitchell. Hello, hello. Let's see. A lot of comments. Let's see. Richard Me 123. Hey, Richard, how's it going? Richard Me 123. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Richard Me 123 if you're still out there. Richard Me 123. So I have this GitHub repo on where else? GitHub. I have this repo on GitHub. It's an idea generator for projects. And one of them was submitted by one of our members. It was a dating service for software developers. And I think Richard Me 123 actually took a stab at that project. Is Richard Me, is that you? And he shared it in our Discord. So it's really cool to see that people take these ideas and do something with them and make them their own. So shout out to Richard. Donovan says the platforms for online learning are endless, no doubt. Vinay says documentation. Let's see. Donovan says, hit the like button, y'all. Yes, I heartily endorse that statement. Please, developers, do me a favor. Just hit the button. Michael, hello. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is talking about when we were discussing some of these older courses online. Andrea Hills says, I took a course that was about a year old and I spent 5 days just because I had a newer version of the framework than the tutorial. Oh, I know. Listen, it happens. That happened to me so many times, especially with like these. Okay, NPM, I don't know. How many packages do they have by now? 250 million. Like, it's just too much. But all this stuff is just, it's so rapidly deployed and then it's outdated like the next day, and taking so long to just set up the basics is so frustrating. Amir says, maybe you can shed some light for me, RTC. I'm new to coding and looking online, particularly on YouTube. I see so many channels selling boot camps, courses, etc. Amir, if you're looking for the 100% free, now, again, I have to emphasize, you get what you pay for. So And your approach is going to be different if you're 100% self-taught doing the free route, because you really have to be disciplined and you have to be resourceful and you have to have more time than money. And you have to ask yourself, what's your time worth? Because sometimes you'll be looking for stuff for 5 and 6 hours. Whereas if you were in a boot camp or something more structured that you're paying for, those answers are like here, 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 here. You can get the support, I guess is what I'm saying. If you're looking, but I understand that many people are on a budget. They don't want to fuss with something structured. They want to do it themselves. I totally get that. I would say for the free route, the best YouTube channel for beginners, because it is so inclusive, there are people of all abilities and the community is great, freeCodeCamp. I used to be a big hater of freeCodeCamp when I first started, because again, I mean, I was just frustrated because these resources, I was taking the Udemy route and I was seeing all these people, and then I was reading these Medium articles like, I became a developer in 2 days. Like, did you? Did you also fail to mention that prior to that, you were studying it for 12 months or 24 months and went to college for 4 years for computer science? Like, I was very frustrated, very cynical, very skeptical, and I took it out on freeCodeCamp. And as I grew in my career and actually entered the field to get paid as a developer, I looked back and saw what they were doing, and I said, they're doing something good. They're doing something good. They've helped millions of people. Great YouTube channel. Shout out to Bo on the YouTube channel, and just so many different perspectives and insights. Now, I don't know. I haven't checked out the curriculum on FCC or freecodecamp.org in quite some time. But someone said they just added some Python stuff, which if you're a web developer, I would not suggest delving into right away. But they have a lot of stuff to get you started. That's my suggestion for free. Scrimba is also really good too. A lot of their stuff is free, and that's great for interactive bits. Andriel says, this is a good tip. This is a pro YouTube tip. If you're doing a YouTube tutorial and you get an error, but the person in the video doesn't, check the comment section before you start freaking out. Yes, YouTube was a big part of my journey as well. I felt more alive. Like, when you're on YouTube, it does feel more alive. And there are people from all walks of life in these comment sections also doing these tutorials. I watched a lot of tutorials on MySQL for some reason on YouTube. I don't know why I didn't just take a course on Udemy. But I was watching, and PHP stuff. That's why I was on YouTube a lot too during this era of learning, because they're just we talk a lot about how we're spoiled with JavaScript, MDN docs or MDN. They recently changed their name. I think it's Mozilla Web Docs now. It'll always be MDN to me. The docs, all that stuff. We're spoiled with JavaScript, not so much with PHP. So I was on PHP. Does anyone know of Toots' channel? I watched a ton of his videos, and a lot of them were a couple years old. And checking the comments really does help, because I got a lot of errors as well. And I'm sure you will too, watching any video that isn't like done today, because again, the stuff is changing so quickly. Let's see. Michael Holman says, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Let's see. Vincent Manera says, to-do apps show you can perform a create, read, update, delete. They show you know a language well enough to do most standard translations required for the web. I agree with that statement. Most standard translations required for the web, that's where it gets a little murky for me. But as far as being able to do a to-do app, if you can create a to-do app without the documentation, here's a joke. So the documentation and like the blogs and the videos are like the net beneath the tightrope. If you can do it without the net, without the documentation, and create a to-do app, I think you're on the right track. Because now it's not just about going like this. A big component of this in problem solving is also architecting your program. What do I mean by that? I mean design. Do I mean graphic design? No, I don't mean graphic design. Do I mean web design? No, I don't mean web design. I mean designing your logic, designing the flow of that program. Whether you are building something bigger, I think this is a discussion we should have for another video because there's so much to talk about. How many people here are familiar with UML? I love UML. OOP is it just makes total sense to me. It's just like water to me. It just flows through my brain. I get it. Functional programming, a little tougher, a little more abstract for this old brain, but OOP all day, every day. I'm all about it. UML is great. And then just, advancing that part of your thought process where it's not just, okay, so instead of just, noting features like a to-do app, so I need a checkbox and then I need an input and then I need this. So that's a feature set, but then understanding how you're going to put it together, that's part of the design process. And really taking those features and either physically or mentally arranging it so that when you start coding, you're not going to code yourself into a corner. It happens all the time. It happens to everyone. Planning is super important, even for these so-called simple projects, because 1 or 2 lines of misguided code can really be frustrating. Let's see. Troy Mitchell says it's so easy to get caught up in chasing the shiny object when you're learning. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Troy. And because it's not just we have a flood of materials, it's that there's a lot of good ones. So how do you connect? And as self-taught developers, again, you get what you pay for. So if you're not paying for something, you're not taking it as, like, if you paid YouTube $10,000 for access, you would be paying attention to the tutorials like a hawk when it came to your web development journey. But because it's free, you're like, what's this music video? Taylor Swift, what's she up to? This video has 6 billion views. What's one more view? It's easy to start diverting your attention because money is a representation of if you have it, money is a representation of commitment. If you're paying a bootcamp $30,000 and you normally don't have that type of money, you're probably going to take it serious. You're probably going to be committed. And that's where paid resources do come in handy, because your brain, it's funny how your brain thinks for you, because it's like, oh, I paid for this, I guess I better log on. And when you're not, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because free stuff is great if you don't have the resources or don't want to create the resources or spend the resources for this stuff. But because there isn't that financial investment, you really have to have a self-discipline like none other. I mean, I see it all the time. It happened to me too. It still happens, like how many times have you been to a website where it's like, sign up now for our free ebook. And then you sign up for the free ebook, like, yeah, I'll read it later. If I paid $5,000 for that ebook, I would have read it immediately. So it's an interesting phenomenon. And just the matter of self-discipline, which is a big problem in this community, because again, we have amazing resources, but staying focused on one so you can get to the level you need to be at, really hard to do. Fortunately, we have things like mentors and networks and stuff, meetups and all this, but it can still be difficult. All right. Let's see. Vincent says, agree that software design is an important skill, but a lot of that comes from experience. I wouldn't expect a junior to be architecting enterprise software, but they will absorb these patterns from seniors. Good point. James says, what's a good project you can do to get a job? This is a big question. I will address this in another live stream because I am about to log off. Developers, all right, let's see. So the software development path for 2020. Pick your protein, web, mobile, insert major area of development here. Then HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Got to do those things. But then it's a matter of picking which ones are good. We talked about a few today. If you want some more insight on this, we have a great community over on our Discord, the RTC Discord. I also have a learning platform where you can take your raw skills and transform them into things that employers really love to see. That's over at realtoughcandy.io. Look at the curriculum, look at what people are saying. I have a huge testimonial section of people who have leveled up, landed jobs, and gotten raises because of the stuff we're sharing. Really excited for that. I hope you're doing well, developers, TGIF. I got to do some more pre-recorded videos. There were some great comments and questions here. We'll get to in other live streams because they're really good. So if you have any more questions about such and such resource or this or that, go to our Discord, Paradoodly Do. Please share the link. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, smash that like button. I'm logging off. I'm out of here. Enjoy your weekend. See you later. Boop.